Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Mess. So Tarek got another fun, interesting, and kind of sad video for you guys this evening because we're going to be talking about Nintendo's recent court filing against Yuzu, the Switch emulator, because I said in a video last February that I felt within 3 to 5 years a major console hardware manufacturer was going to bring up a court case that could set and change legal precedent. It seems like I was about 2 to 4 years early on that because it is here today. We're going to be going over the court case, what it means, how it could affect emulation in general, and whether or not Nintendo actually has a leg to stand on legally on this one. But all the news today is about Nintendo suing Yuzu, which is a gigantic bummer because it means Nintendo's trying to do something that's probably not going to be very user-friendly or consumer-friendly in the end. And it's all down to the fact that Yuzu basically is a better Nintendo Switch than Nintendo can make. But this is what I said in February of last year. Go ahead and listen, then we'll come right back and talk about exactly what's going on. Here's the thing, you need to follow along with the law. It is legal today, but if we've learned anything in the last couple of years, long-standing legal precedent and doctrine can and will be reversed. I anticipate a court case in the next 3 to 5 years from a major hardware manufacturer that tries to make emulation not legal, and that is very possible. Now, we do need to define what Nintendo is doing in this court case. They do reference emulation being illegal, but the court case is based on circumvention of their end-to-end encryption from the software to the hardware. And you can see here in the court filing, which is public, Nintendo of America versus Tropic Haze LLC. If I refer to Yuzu, it really is just Tropic Haze in this instance. And obviously, emulation has been around for a long time. Now, we do need to say that Yuzu is definitely flying about as close to the sun as you can possibly get against Nintendo, but that doesn't mean they're necessarily right or wrong. But right in the court filing, Nintendo defines a video game emulator is a piece of software that allows users to unlawfully play pirated video games, and they were only published for a specific general computing device. What Nintendo is saying is Switch games are meant to run on Switch, Super Nintendo games are meant to run on Super Nintendo. But interestingly enough, Nintendo uses emulation all day long to sell you old games, so I don't understand why they would put that in their filing other than the fact that they want to talk about it in court. They're trying to say that a Switch is fine to play a Switch game, but a Steam Deck is not. And generally when you do a court filing, you put everything in you may want to talk about. That's in the brief and it's in the scope of the case. What they're saying is that means that you can use an emulator to play pirated games. Now, of course, that is in fact true, but it is not the totality of the truth. You can use software emulation to play games you legally own. I will say right now that I did almost my entire playthrough of Tears of the Kingdom, a game I own for console I own, on Yuzu because Yuzu is a better experience than the real hardware. But the crux of the case comes down to talking about the different encryption and security methodologies Nintendo has put into the Nintendo Switch as well as the game cartridges. They're trying to say that Yuzu is circumventing all of these protections to allow you to run your games on an emulator versus real hardware, and that doesn't really technically ring true, and we will discuss why in just a little bit. But again, fair warning, I am not a lawyer. I've spent a lot of my career dealing in the law, and I have beaten lawyers in open court defending myself, but that's a different story. Now, the system has decryption keys inside of it. These are required to run any sort of Nintendo Switch software. Without the decryption keys, the software will not decrypt. It will not allow it to play on any software whatsoever. The system also has a software key that it's going to have on every individual copy of a game. That's the secondary key that is going to combine together with the decryption key on your Switch hardware. You put these two together and they run the games. It's basically a key in a lock system. It's a call and response. If it gets an affirmation that everything is correct, it will then run that software. Nintendo's going to say here about all those different technological measures they have put in place on Switch, including the prod.keys file. I think it's very interesting. I don't know if Nintendo calls them this. This is what Yuzu calls them on their website when they talk about the files you need, so it seems like Nintendo's referencing Yuzu's own documentation to use against them. They are saying that Yuzu is circumventing the technological measures on Nintendo Switch. Well, here is the thing. Yuzu is showing you how to take your original hardware and your original games and acquire that information for yourself. Is that going to meet the legal definition of trying to circumvent those protections? It even explains how it is done in the court filing. So theoretically, wouldn't the court case be against every individual that's done this and not Yuzu, which has just directed you to information about how to do it? Because anyone using Yuzu is doing the circumvention, Yuzu is not. Nintendo also talks about illegal backups of software, yet backing up your own software is still 100% permissible. There is no detail on how you do it. It is just fair game if you want to back up your computer software. But that is the interesting thing. Nintendo's basically trying to contradict everything that would be on record. Backing your games up yourself is legal, but Nintendo's talking about backups being illegal in this court document. Now, as we move on, you're going to see here it allows you to make at least one unauthorized copy of a Nintendo Switch game. Well, if you own the game, you can make the copy, and then they reference the different copyright acts, 106 and 501 right here. So let's take a look at 106. This is the most vague, antiquated thing you're going to see. It's going to talk about phonographic records as well as pantomimes, motion pictures, and all sorts of other things that basically sound like they are from antiquity. They're talking about pantomimes, motion pictures, and other audiovisual works, and you'll see some of these statutes and details date back to 1909 and 1976. This is a very old piece of code. Now, if we move over to 501, it just talks about violating copyright. It doesn't really specify anything about gaming software or computer software in and of itself, and it seems like Nintendo's using the vagueness of these to try to make their court case, because backing up your software is legal. And you'll see here this even has stuff to do with broadcast television and satellites. An interesting tidbit: when I worked a lot in music licensing for film and television, you get a universe license because the minute that transmission leaves the planet to a satellite, technically if you had a global license it would not be valid. But they talk about anti-circumvention technologies a lot in this. And yes, it is not allowed under the DMCA for companies or individuals to circumvent these protections, except in some cases that do permit it. And this is where the court case is really going to come down to. Is Yuzu circumventing this protection measure under DMCA? I don't believe they are. And if they were, or if the end user is that allowable? Because you'll see here it does give numerous limitations and exceptions, including reverse engineering, encryption research, security testing, etc. Yuzu is researching things, so even if they were working on this, there could be a very big defense made that this is permissible under DMCA. Now we need to talk about the gigantic elephant in the room, which is, can they compete with Nintendo's legal team in this spending? Because they do give you the information on how to do something, but the software is not doing it for you. You, the end user, are the one that is going in and providing these keys. Therefore, it is very interesting from a legal standpoint why the case is being brought against Yuzu, because I can't find any evidence of Yuzu actually circumventing anything. It is the end user that does that. You're going to see here they talk about how many times a game was downloaded. That has nothing to do with Yuzu. That is a million individuals doing a million individual acts. Trying to say emulation shouldn't be legal and this is a violation of Nintendo's copyrights is like trying to say we should ban CDRs because technically you could put music you don't own onto them. Yes, this could be used for something that should not be permissible, but that does not mean the act in and of itself is 100% illegal. You can use Yuzu 100% legally. Then Nintendo gets into talking about how they use emulation for their own business purposes. Just before they said emulators were used specifically to play illegal copies of games, but now Nintendo's talking about how important this is to their overall business scheme, and that gets to the genuine heart of what Nintendo is trying to do here, in my opinion. It's emulation for thee, not for me. They want the rights holders to be able to use emulation to continue to derive profit off of these games, but if you legally own the system, the game cartridge, or the disc and want to use emulation and not original hardware, they're trying to say that you're circumventing their copyrights under DMCA. And there's so many different ways to emulate a Nintendo 64, an NES, a Switch, a Wii, a Wii U, a GameCube. They're basically trying to imply in the court filing that emulation is only used for piracy and it is an illegal act, even though they reference using it themselves. You'll see here that they talk about Yuzu providing those detailed instructions. Well, what is wrong with the instructions? Is that circumvention? I don't believe it is, but again, not a bar certified lawyer here, a video game YouTube channel, but I do have a lot of experience in this. Showing somebody how to do something with the hardware that they purchased is generally allowable, and that's how interesting this is. Is giving somebody the direction on how to do something circumvention? If I tell you hit somebody in the head with a brick really hard and it ends them, am I an accessory to murder, or did I just tell you bricks are dangerous? That is how gray the gray area in this case is. And other people with a better legal brain than me, because they actually are lawyers, have already commented on this. I'll leave the Ars Technica article in the link below, and big thanks to Mr. Sujano for sending this over. They're talking about the fact that they're trying to say general computing devices are turned into tools for massive intellectual property infringement, and they even say that basically Nintendo is taking the position that emulation itself is unlawful, but just like I said earlier, that is not the core foundation of this case. But this is just highly disappointing and highly expected. Nintendo has to do this sort of stuff, and I end up talking about it. The first video I did, I got a lot of comments saying this would never happen, but this is my little minor victory lap. I got my running shoes on, and I'm going to take a few laps for you guys. But honestly, if you ask me right now what I expected the decision to be off this court case, I do not expect there to be one. I think this quietly settles, the terms of the settlement may never be shared, and Nintendo waits for the next time to go after something. But I assume unless Yuzu has very deep pockets for the court case, you might not be seeing Yuzu around forever. But we'll just have to wait and see. Next time something happens, I'll make another video. Sure to that, leave me a comment down below if you have any questions, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.